Welcome to the January 9th Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. And our first order of business, I'd like to ask everyone to stand, we'll face the flag and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Manson, could we have the roll call, please?
Evans.
Here.
Gazin.
Here.
Butts.
Here.
Kirby.
Here.
McAlpine.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Evans.
Here. Okay, our next item is approval of agenda. And by the way, we do have a full board. Our next item is approval of our agenda. Does anyone have any corrections, changes, or additions to the agenda? Seeing motion to approve?
Support.
Motion to approve and support. Any discussion? Ms. Fancy?
Butts.
Yes.
Gazin.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
McAlpine.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Kirby.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes. Okay, we have two sets of meeting minutes to approve. The first one being the December 9th, 2016 joint work session between Council, Planning Commission, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. Does anyone have any changes to the proposed minutes? If not,
I do, I have one change.
Oh, no. Council's already approved.
Really? I was not there that day.
Oh, you weren't? Are you
No.
shown there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Then we need to correct that. don't we?
Shortly.
We were thinking about you the whole meeting.
They were, yeah.
You have to give back the lunch now.
Okay, well, that's a biggie. We'll get that corrected. Okay.
any additional changes? Do I have a motion for approval?
Move to approve as amended.
A second?
Oh, support?
Yeah.
Support Mr. Smith. Okay. Any discussion? Ms. Vanson, roll call.
Evans.
Yes.
Gazin.
Yes.
Kirby.
Yes.
McAlpine.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Butts.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes. Okay. And then we have our next set of meeting minutes from the zoning board's December 12th regular meeting. Do you have any proposed changes to those minutes?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Smith?
there are two dentist tenants listed. And if we're gonna do that, we should also designate which one is the good one and which one is the evil one.
Thank you.
Or we could just delete one of them.
Okay, very good. Good catch. Hearing no further changes, do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve with the pretense that we, or with the request that we remove the duplicate of Mr. Hennan.
Support?
We have a motion to support. Ms. Vanson?
McAlpine.
Yes.
Kirby.
Yes.
Gazin.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Butts.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes. Okay, our next item is one item for appeal. We have a variance. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Ms. Vanson, could you summary?
Do you want me to read the agenda item?
Yes.
Okay, ready to go.
Sure.
Application number BA0117, Angela and Marco Cuco, thank you. 1862 Robina Avenue, Lot 3 of the Berry subdivision, parcel ID 2518478003, east side of Robina between 11 Mile and Columbia, is requesting a variance of Berkley City Code, Chapter 138 zoning, Division 17, Schedule of Regulations, Section 138.526, Schedule of Regulations. In the R1D district, the smallest side yard setback shall not be less than 5 feet. Both side yards shall total 15 feet. And Section 138.527 notes the Schedule of Regulations. Subsection D, there shall be a distance of at least 15 feet between dwellings. The applicant is requesting this variance in order to construct a second-story addition on a non-conforming house. The house is 10.13 feet from the house to the north and approximately 2.35 feet from the north property line.
Any staff, any members of the board have any questions for Ms. Vanson?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Smith?
Just one, Amy, to clarify, you had in your report indicated that this is something that you could have approved administratively.
Yes.
And can you elaborate a little bit more on why you wanted to bring it to us?
The building official and I both have to agree under the ordinance, and the feeling was that while some lots are are smaller than this one, and the only possible way to really improve a house that is, as Commissioner Eric Morrell said, a white German Shepherd, is to, instead of a white elephant, is to go up. With this one, the lot is fairly large for an R1D district, and there seemed that there were some additional opportunities, that along with the fact that the houses are so close together in this instance, and it's not just a chimney that's projecting into that, it's actual living space. We felt it was important for the board to weigh in.
Thank you.
Okay. Hearing nothing from the board, I'll ask the applicant to please step up to the podium. And if you could start by telling us your name and address, and then...
Hi, my name is Angie Kuko, and I live in Lathrop Village, actually, 18513 San Quentin in Lathrop Village. That's a start. Would you like me to go on, or?
That's sufficient for your address. Know that the zoning board has received every piece of information in your packet. We've all looked at it, and you can repeat that information. You can say a summary if you have something new to add, whatever you'd like to tell us.
Well, just wanted to tell you that we've been wanting to buy a property in Berkley for some time. We are, even though we live in Lathrop Village, our kids go to school here, and we're kind of quite enmeshed in the community. So this seemed to be a really good opportunity, but the house is very tiny. It's very kind of charming actually inside, but there is really no space. Even the kitchen, I don't think you could even put a refrigerator in there. I'm not sure what the previous owner did. So we want to expand on it to make it more of a livable space. We could go, originally we thought maybe we'll go back and add just one bedroom, which would make it a slightly bit larger, maybe just over 1,000 square feet, but still quite small. And that kind of cuts into all of the backyard area and makes that a little bit. So we then talked to our architect and to our builder, and they said, well, what about going up a second floor? And well, that seems to be a good option. We could kind of double the size, make it more for a modern family, and not have to kind of go any further out and not cut into the yard anymore. So that's our thought. That's what we would really like to do.
Okay. Do any members of the board have any questions for the applicant? Excuse me.
I tried to be very thorough in my packet. I may have gone a bit overboard.
No, it was well done,
Yeah.
actually. Very well done. Very well done. I do have one question. Have you considered, or can you talk a little bit if you have considered alternatives for meeting the setback for the second story? In other words, that would be bringing the north wall further south. Have you looked into that, and if so, can you talk about that a little bit?
I'm sorry?
Have you looked into alternatives? What could be added onto the house to go up to satisfy the setback?
Well, the reason setback.
Could you step up to the microphone and just say your name and address? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Barbara Kichewski. Okay, the reason we can't do that is because the staircase is going to be directly lining up with where the basement stands right now. So, and that's the part that's close to the neighboring house. So this is why we're going up. I mean, otherwise, we couldn't remove that part of the house. I mean, the house itself is only 20 feet wide. So, and with the staircase, it wouldn't make any livable space between that.
And you're the
Architect.
architect, thank you. Okay. Do any other members of the board have any questions for the applicant or representatives?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Smith?
this is the most comprehensive, most professional packet I've seen in my
It's really
term
good
on
of
the
you to say
ZBA.
that.
I'm impressed to no end.
Thank you.
The house itself has long been one of my actual favorite houses in Berkley, so
Really?
this is the kind of house that I used to live in, so.
Oh,
But the problem I've got here is you're very close to your neighbors. And say your house goes up. What you've done to your neighbor now is you've created an unbuildable lot for him. If somebody wants to come sometime down the road and redevelop that property, which is also in excellent condition, it may not happen during my lifetime. But we get a problem here, and I haven't figured out how to resolve that. When you were looking at doing your renovations, it's an older home, I assume it has the shallow Michigan basement?
it's shallow, but not
It's
completely
7
shallow.
feet.
It's, yeah,
It's
it's,
7
you
feet.
don't have to sort of, you know.
6'3", 6'4", perhaps,
Okay, so plenty tall enough for me.
and me as well.
But did you look at the cost of actually demolishing the property and moving it to be compliant?
Yeah, but we're not replacing the basement, we're,
I understand.
so-
Did you evaluate that as one of your
Yeah, I
options?
mean, that doesn't seem to be something that's cost effective for us. That would be really quite expensive. And the other thing is, I'm not sure where we would move, I mean, we could move it, but then there would be no driveway. I'm a little bit concerned because even on the other side, and you can see, I think in the photos in there somewhere, along the other side of the house is the driveway, and then there's the fence line on the other property. So it's just this problematic kind of long skinny lot. So we're a little bit at a loss other than going back, but the problem is again that we still have a very small house that's not really large enough.
Right. And going back is an option. One of the things we're tasked with on this board is to, one, look and see, is what the applicant is trying to do consistent with city plans and strict application of the ordinance? If it would create a unintended consequence, then we would look at that. But in this case, or in all cases, we have to look at options that the applicant has too, that would allow them to,
Yeah. Again, I think, going, where the choices are to go from like an 800 square foot house to about 1,000, or to go to sort of double the square footage and go to about 1,600. The other thing is, there are a lot of new constructions going up. Across the street, there are 2 houses, one brand new one that looks like it's being refurbished, that are both 2 stories. That's kind of the way that things are going as people need more space today, and I think that it's just always going to be kind of functionally obsolete if we even just go back and add 1 bedroom, which is about all we can do if we go back, because otherwise there's just no yard.
And the kitchen will remain obsolete, and the
We need to-
bathroom
Sir?
will remain
Yeah.
obsolete.
Could you step up to the
Yes, of
microphone
course.
and tell us your name and
Yes.
your interest in this?
Yes, of course, Marco Cucco. Well, the point I was making is that even adding an extra bedroom will not change the size of some of the rooms that will remain the same, such as the kitchen, such as the bathroom. And also, we also like the fact that the yard has some space for a family. If we were to add to the back, then we will cut quite a bit. We probably will have to cut down a beautiful mature tree that is in the backyard. And it will be right beside the garage. So again, for us, it seems to be that going up seems to be somewhat of the best choice.
Path of least resistance, anyway.
oh, understood. That's it for my questions and comments. Not a whole lot to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And you're essentially, with this proposal, if I could, you're doubling the size. How many square feet are you gonna end up with?
1,600.
1,600? Okay.
Yeah.
Do any other members of the board have any? Mr.
Quick
Kirby?
question? Yeah. So the house is 20 foot wide as it stands now, and you're going to put a second floor on there that's 20 foot or so. You have a 43-foot lot. We have many houses going on 40-foot lots today in Berkley that are well over 2,000 square foot on a 40-foot lot, not even a 43-footer. As far as space, there's a lot of space on this particular property. We have those homes going on properties that are 40 foot by, say, 120 deep. You have a 43 by 137 deep. That seems to be a lot of property there to do a second story on top of the neighbor like that, but you guys are pretty comfortable with a 20-foot wide house?
Well, I think that the plans, we really like the plans that Barbara was able to draw up. It makes us have a lot more living space on the bottom floor, and then I think we go to 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms, which is actually quite a bit. We being kind of creative with the space, but then we're trying to also minimize the disruption. I mean, doing a whole demolishment and then having to build a new house means a lot longer construction period, a lot of disruption for the neighborhood for quite some time, and we don't really want to do that if we don't have to. We'd also like to have a driveway that there isn't just street parking, so we have to think about that. So that's why we'd like to do it. I mean, it's kind of a yes, strange layout, but I think the way that she's made it and the idea of kind of redoing the outside a little bit with the border to make it look really nice.
So in general, I see you have a walk-in closet, you have 3 bedrooms, Jack and Jill bath, you know, a master bath there. You have a couple walk-in closets, 4 bedrooms in this 20-foot wide house. That's impressive. All of these plans here, we pretty much expect to meet code on the hallways and closets
Yep.
and
Yep.
livable spaces at
Yep.
20-foot wide.
She's a good architect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we struggle here in Berkeley with,
course.
you know, we're looking at the house sizes right now and what we can do with the 40-foot lots. And,
Yeah.
you know, this is nice to see a plan come in front of us that takes all those modern amenities into account in a house that the width is that small. And I imagine the bump out, the reason you're going the second story on that bump out is for the stairway, right?
That's for the
Because you
stairway,
need
yeah.
that space to.
Yeah. Otherwise, the dining room would be too small,
Yeah.
or move it in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the board have any questions for the applicant? Okay. Hearing no further questions, why don't you go have a seat?
Thank you.
And at this point, I'll open up the public comment portion of the meeting. This is where anyone who has any thoughts about what the board should do with this case can step up to the podium. Let us know your name and address, sir. Come on right up. You can give us an idea of your proximity to the house and let us know what you think.
My name is David York. I am the house north of this one. I would just like to say I really don't have any problem with this. I look at it as they are improving the neighborhood, and the house is really in bad shape. I know I painted it once when I was a young man, so it's been a long time, and I know Lynn couldn't afford to fix it up. So I'm not seeing any problems with what they want to do with it, and basically, if it was me, I would rather go up because I hate to give up land. I enjoy my backyard back there, so I don't have a lot of problem with it, I don't think, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Smith?
Mr. York?
Yes, sir.
A couple questions that I should have asked about your property. How wide is it?
I don't know.
All right, and the reason I asked
I've lived
is
there 45 years.
your neighbor goes up, and now their house is 3 feet off the lot line.
It's pretty close, yeah.
So if you were to want to redevelop your property, you would wind up giving up space. Right now, under our current ordinance, you've got to have 15 feet separation between buildings. I don't think your lot was wide enough, because I played checkers the other day, to actually move that far over. But then I thought, wait a minute, where's the driveway? And the question is your lot wide enough to give away 2 feet if you were going to redevelop?
Well, I guess that's where I really don't know, because the house is going to move to my side.
No, the house is not going to
Right,
move.
they're just going
But
up.
if you wanted to put up a new house where yours is today, you or somebody in the future, they would be unable to use the footprint that your house has because of separation. So you could go up potentially and keep the 10 feet, which is the bare minimum, but you're the guy that is most impacted by a variance that this board would grant.
Well, if I wanted to be realistic about this, I will probably live there until I die. I like the city and everything. I don't plan on any time doing any future, so it would have to be somebody after me that would do that. I've raised my kids here in the city. They've grown up, got married, so I'm happy. I really don't like to stop a man from doing something to his home. I kind of agree it shouldn't infringe on somebody else, but I wouldn't see anything wrong with doing improvements. Really, it's I think it would be beneficial to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak? Seeing no one, I'll close the public comment portion of the meeting and bring it back to the board for discussion. Board members, any thoughts?
I have a couple of points.
Mr. Kirby.
Yeah, even piggybacking on that, building a new house there, even if the neighbor to the north, Mr. York, would like to go up with a second-story dormer himself, or somebody in the future, they would run into that same issue, having that house and the footprint in the same spot. Now, the decision here is whether we allow this house so close to the lot line to acquire that second story, or they could build a nice new house in the center of the lot where it should go, leaving no problems with that property and no problems with their own property. And that's really the question that we have here. You know, is there no doubt that the house needs some tender love and care and needs some work done to it. However, it was built early on and it is pretty close to the lot line. You know, with a 43-foot lot, there's a lot you could do on that property right there. A lot you could do. I mean, I'm impressed with the plans also.
Mr.
Jen?
I'm actually surprised this is before us, because years ago, we went through this whole discussion on a non-conforming, straight-up addition to a house. If it's pre-existing non-conforming, we decided years ago that it wasn't going to be an issue that we were going to have to face. Am I correct?
Yes, codified, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just surprised that it's even here. It should have been granted to begin with.
Mr. Chair? The discussion earlier was that both Amy and the building official need to agree that it's okay, and in this case, one or the other
I understand.
didn't. When I look at this, what I see is the fire code says you got a 10 feet separation between the buildings. This thing could go straight up and hit whatever height limit. There's no danger created. You know, there has been no increase in encroachment or whatnot. The guy to the north, he's got a 43-foot wide lot. If for some reason that house was to be demolished and a new one built, you would wind up putting the driveway on the south side, consistent with applicant's home, with 12 feet off the lot line, and you still have a compliant home. So granting a variance doesn't do any harm. The real question is, are there options? And are the options reasonable? When I look at an existing foundation, there's no sense in not using it, as long as it's structurally capable of holding the weight. Going up, we shouldn't be having this discussion.
Correct.
But I think, given what's been going on in the community, the discussion of setbacks and whatnot, it's a good idea we have it.
Any further comments from any of the board members? Any additional discussions?
No.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Kirby?
Yeah, I think it's definitely important to have the discussion as well. You know, I understand when they are close together, and I do agree with building straight up off of that foundation. But at 2 foot, say 2.5 feet away from the lot line is where I think the real discussion comes into play here, you know? And then it gets back to, you know, is the code burdensome on this piece of property here because the house is already built, and having them tear it down and build a whole new house seems like it's burdensome there, because you're correct, the foundation does look pretty good, and it would seem that going up would be the best course of action.
Yeah, I think too that, this is a 20-foot wide home. They've maintained the footprint. The most affected neighbor is telling us he would have no issue, and he seems to understand as well if future things were done to his home, what effect that may have. There's trade-offs when you say remove a house and potentially put up something wider, which could fit on this property potentially without any action from this board. Does that increase the density? Could that have an effect on the person to the south? We don't know, but I think that's just a consideration. But I think in this instance, based on the situation here, plus the most affected neighbor being in favor of the variance, I think there's a lot of good reasons to approve this variance.
I have yet one other quick point, Mr. Chairman. The minimum necessary here. We have the bump out there for the stairwell. That's what brings us over to that 2 foot, 2.3 feet. I myself, I understand why that bump out needs to be there, and only being 20 foot wide for that stairwell to wrap around like that. But I would be much more comfortable with that minimum variance if it stuck with the main line of the house and went back to the, keeping closer to 12 feet between the house, personally. Just as a thought.
Yeah, I've thought that as well. And I don't want to be prescriptive, but it's been flipped to avoid reduce the amount of variance granted.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Smith.
it's an existing bump out.
That's true.
So I look at it and
It's
think,
just going right up.
Yeah.
It's part of the foundation.
you can take it out.
Foundation.
Well, it's not part of the foundation,
Foundation,
it's
yeah.
it's cantilevered over.
Yeah, it's cantilevered
You're
over.
just going straight up.
It's,
Because the old staircase is at the back of the property.
and there's creative ways to get rid of it, but what does the community gain?
Well, and it's only a staircase. It's not the entire length, too.
The distance is going to be no different today as it would be going up,
Okay.
right?
Correct.
Yep,
Correct.
so, I mean,
Yep.
so we're not, I think our job is absolutely to look at every option and to come up with the least intrusive variance that there is, but in this case, we're simply going up. We're not going any further out, so we're consistent with exactly where we're at, the floor plan and the amount of space that we have now. And I'd also echo the fact that it really is refreshing considering the number of plans that we've seen coming in front of us, that you are able to do this. And it looks to be a very nice, well-organized, open floor plan. And considering what we've seen, it kind of flies in the face of what we've been told a lot lately, which is nice. So,
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Smith.
we should ask what size furniture fits in the bedrooms,
it's all good.
even though that's none of our business. Those are small
That's a word
rooms.
for later.
Well, if there's no other comments from anyone, I am prepared to make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Any further comments from any other members of the board? Ms. McAlpine.
I would like to make a motion to approve application number BA0117 with the variances outlined here so that we will have a house that is 10.3 feet from the house to the north and approximately 2.3 feet north of the property line.
Okay, do we have a second?
I second that.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Do we want to talk any more about 5 standards? If not, I'll ask for a vote. Okay, Ms. Vanson.
Emmons,
No.
Butts,
Yes.
McAlpine,
Yes.
Kirby,
Yes.
Gazin,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes,
Evans.
Yes. Okay, you have your variance. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
you guys realize you have set the standard now, and
There's a new standard.
Yes.
You can give it to people as a template.
Yeah, it's a template people can use definitely. Thanks again. Bye.
Thank you for coming. All right, the next item on our agenda is discussion regarding past variance cases for single-family dwellings and current ordinances.
Mr. Kirby asked and Ms. McAlpine asked for this to be put on the agenda as a discussion item. You had asked about, specifically said post-master plan, is also post, Great Recession. I thought it would be a bit more contextual and a little more informative to go 8 years on either side, so I went to 2001, just so it was a little clearer what was happening pre-master plan and zoning changes as well as Great Recession. So you have a lot of graphs. In the back is all the data, and you also have a copy of a memo when the Planning Commission was looking at schedules of regulation. Renee Halloran, who was our building clerk for 25-some years, researched the schedule of regulations from 1971 onward and noted the various changes that had occurred. And then you have a copy of a letter that I sent in 2008 after City Council adopted a number of changes outlining those changes.
Okay, thank you. Very well done. Very
Yes.
comprehensive. Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Smith, yes.
how would you like to approach our review of this? I love numbers, this is heavenly.
You know, I know Mr. Kirby and Ms. McAlpine, you requested it. Maybe if you want to start off with some introductory comments, some thoughts, maybe some conclusions you might want to draw from this, or maybe what you might want to ask the board to discuss if you still feel that way.
You know, the original thoughts were how many of these we were seeing. You know, we say infill or lot split type cases, that includes our setbacks that we've been.
These were generally the ones that were going to result in two houses being where one house was.
Gotcha.
That's what these are.
Mhm.
So prior to the changes in 2008 in the ordinance, they would have been coming before the board to split the lot. Now they can split the lot, and they're coming before, after the fact, to say, I gotta build a bigger house. So those are the same kinds of cases, because again, it's resulting in two houses where one was. So that's why it says infill or lot split type cases.
Okay.
Well, I see some heavy caseload here back in the early 2000s.
Yeah, do you
Look at it.
For the small amount of houses.
Amy, do you have any thoughts on the drop-off?
That was like multiple years now.
Yeah.
The economy.
You mean between 2005 and 2006?
Yeah,
I
it
think
just
was
seems that-
economics.
Well, just even if you look at it,
The economy.
27, 24, 26, 25.
That was also before we made some changes.
There were a lot of changes that have been made.
Lightened up the restrictions.
Gotcha. Okay.
Back in those days, I mean, we were here late quite a bit.
When did
Record
that,
was 18 cases in one meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Hold on, was that the CBS signs?
Yeah, that might have been before you, actually. That was early on. That was like 97 or something. But yeah, that was, but you were seeing stuff on, hot tubs were classified the same as a swimming pool, and which is good because you can drown in either one of them. But you needed to have the same setback, and so, we figured out with a gallon was the difference depending on how much water the pool could hold, whether it could be close to the house or not. So you saw a lot of those. Swimming pools needed to be 10 feet away, even though the building code said 6, so we changed it. So there was a lot of cleanup that was done. And then post-2008, there were a number of changes made with garages and things like that the board used to see an awful lot of that you don't see now.
Okay.
well, it seems like the uptick in the new house building here, say 2010 going into 11. Since that time, we pretty much had 9, 13, We've had 15 cases on the infill, it looks like, in that amount of time, with all of those houses being built. The number approved in that amount of time is, what, 8, 10, 14 of them. So here we've had, what are we roughly looking at, 78, 104, roughly about 140 houses built, and we've approved 15 of them with those type of variances in that, out of that 140. That's not quite as widespread as maybe we, or I was thinking. You know, sitting up here, when we see them time and time and time again, it seems like there's, you know, a fair amount of them.
Prevalence.
But when you start to look at those numbers right there, only 15 out of 150, 10% is what we're looking at right there.
Mr. Chair?
Well, I feel like, go ahead.
One thing to add to that, since I've been on the zoning board of appeals, the homes that we have approved to go in have been compliant. It's been the neighboring properties that have caused the setback issues. So we have not, in my memory, approved new construction with less than the 5-foot side yard setback, unless you have a situation where you're trying to protect neighboring
I think
properties.
this is the only one that we just
Yes.
did, now that I can recall.
Yes, and this isn't new construction.
You know, we've had other cases similar to this where we allowed them just to go straight up when they were pre-existing, too close here and there.
But the new construction that we've approved as part of the ZBA, and Amy, please correct me if I'm wrong here, has always had at least 4.8-foot side yard setback. They've been largely compliant with the current rules, and it's the neighboring properties that have caused the property owners to come here and make their appeal. So we're not creating these monstrosities, we're just trying to manage the reconstruction process.
Well, I think this is a great snapshot. You know, one of the questions I get, you know, because I work in the planning and do zoning for City of Troy, is when people come in and see me about a variance, one of the first questions out of their mouth is either, what percentage are approved and what's not? And I think we all realize that while percentages are important to look at, it's also because it's a case-by-case basis. You know, we could make the argument that, is the percentage too high or too low? Well, I think there's other factors that need to be looked at. And just the fact that maybe in 2009 that the board approved 100% of the variances doesn't necessarily mean that the board's overly generous or somehow applied a different standard. So I think this is an excellent snapshot to really illustrate the fact that the board's job is to handle everything on a case-by-case basis.
And one other comment too, if I could. This says a lot about what comes before us. You know, we don't get junk cases. We get real issues that need to be resolved, and it's not an idea of just throw up as many as you can.
Well, that's a good point. I think, I get the impression that Amy and staff does a good job of sitting down with the applicant and at least giving them a realistic idea of what the criteria are, so they know how ripe it may or may not be. And I think that's very important at the front end.
Yep. And the 2 years that we did approve 100%, and that only being 6 out of 6 and 7 out of 7, none of them were infill or last place. They were all fences,
Signage.
signage, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. Any additional comments or thoughts from the board?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Smith?
Almost random thinking. Go to the May 24, 2007 memorandum. I just wanted to comment, 1976 and 1982, those were recession years. And I think at the time the city was probably concerned that new housing might be too small, might be not what we want here. So just 40 years ago, we had a different concern, that the replacement housing was not gonna be large enough to be consistent with what's already here, and now we have a, maybe a different concern. But the evolution of the rules has done a pretty good job. There was something recently, one of the communities I was just in last week, Northville or Plymouth. There was a big stink about them tightening up their regulations for house size. And we did that 10 years ago, when we started changing the rules so that you couldn't have a double wide front-loading garage. We wanted to do things to preserve the city, and with our setbacks and our lot coverage requirements, we're actually ahead of many communities.
Any additional comments? Do we want to staff do anything with this? Or
No, I
are
think-
we all?
I'd just like to thank you for putting it
Yeah,
together.
thank you.
Good job, good job.
I
Okay.
think it also helps us realize that we don't approve everything that comes in front of us. It may feel like we do because we have a meeting every month and we forget about the ones that you deny. So I appreciate this. It was great, and thank you for all the work that went into it.
All right. And we will have an opportunity for public comment near the end of
This
the
is
meeting.
an agenda item, right? Correct?
Mhm.
So I should be able to speak on an agenda item, yes?
Would we go to public comment?
No, this
No,
is
I think-
discussion, but you will be afforded the opportunity in just a short period of time under
But
public
this is
comments.
still, but that's public comments. This is an agenda item to talk about this.
We'll still listen, you can talk about this, but I just want to proceed with the order of business on the agenda. We do have other business. Do any members of the board have anything for other business they'd like to bring up?
If I can just, I did provide information on training workshops. If anybody's interested in that, you do have money in your budget to do that. Just let me know if you want to register for anything, and we can make that happen.
Can I go to Florida instead?
And I do have a question regarding that. Almost 2 years ago to this day, we had what I thought was a very, very good zoning board of appeals training put on by our planning consultant. And I appreciate what the Michigan Association of Planning does. A lot of the training's out of the area.
Yeah.
Would it be possible, and maybe I can ask the board as well, to consider perhaps scheduling a training session like we did 2 years ago? I thought it was very beneficial, and I think having one locally would be much easier for everyone to attend.
I would support that.
Yeah?
I would as well.
Okay. I'm seeing nods. I'm seeing nods.
Okay, let me get some prices.
I'm seeing more nods. Okay. All right.
Good suggestion.
Well, if it's in the budget.
Maybe the city attorney can see, so I'll look into it. I'll look into it and report back to you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Any other business, Mr. Kirby?
Nothing here?
No? Okay. All right. Ms. Vanson, you and I had a brief discussion regarding the role of the alternates at the meetings. And I had asked, and you were gonna check with the city attorney.
I did check with the city attorney with regard to board members, and if they're not active on a case, there had been some question about offering public comment. The city attorney looked into it. It's not illegal, but he was concerned about if a case has to be postponed for any period of time, and the alternate then has already commented on the case as part of public comment, and then is asked to act upon it. He was concerned about giving testimony or offering comments, as the idea is that as a board, you're all coming in unbiased and not giving evidence. You're receiving evidence and looking at it. So that was his recommendation, was to, if you're on the board, to withhold comments.
Okay. All right. Thank you for checking with the attorney on that.
You're welcome.
Mr. Kirby.
Is that something that we might want to look at putting in our own rules of order for the board? Something to that effect, or really not needed?
Well,
Because I agree, the public perception out there does not look good when that goes on. And it could be either the case is postponed, or the one we had a couple months ago where the gentleman came back with a different, in fact, that may have been where the comment was about ownership. And if that gentleman comes back with a totally different variance 2 months from now, and then here we have a member that was questioning the ownership previously, and then has to sit on the board to hear that, that's where the public perception starts to come in and ends up a bit skewed. When we're commenting on a case, and then yet we're still here as an alternate,
you're referring,
or a member of the
yeah,
board.
You're referring to,
It was a couple times ago,
Yeah.
no, it was the,
No, it was the property on Franklin.
yeah, yeah.
He came with one, and then we said maybe, and then he went and bought the second one.
No, yeah,
Yes,
and he came
yes,
back with a
he came-
separate variance attempt.
Alamoth?
This will,
Yes.
yeah,
Franklin,
I think
okay.
so.
Yeah, it's right in our minutes.
Gotcha.
But,
Okay.
you know, just, yeah, and just.
That was him
Stephen
asking about from Saturday
Had
with the
had,
addition.
no, he had something to say on that gentleman's thing about the ownership of the actual property. And then, you know, if that gentleman were to come back
Right.
again, it just leaves us, you know, in my opinion, it's, I don't know, it's just a rough spot to be put on. You know, as a board, we're sitting up here with our colleagues, yet we have commented on the, you know, so
Right here.
it's just a thought. You know, maybe we could put that in our rules of procedure, or, you know, when we review them here this next year, or just keep it in mind. It just seems to be,
Since all of us are here right now.
yeah, all of us are here.
Well,
Yes.
and we do have the alternates here,
Right.
is that, I think it would be appropriate
It's
to at
the
least
first
see what the
time
alternates, if you
that
have
I
any
had
comments
seen
on that
that.
as well.
In the packet, there was 2 applications. The previous one and the one that was there for the evening. Both of them had a different name on the property ownership than the gentleman that was here. I was looking for clarification. It was definitely not a criticism.
No,
No, that's,
you know, I don't even think we're taking it as that. It's just a matter of one of the board members, and you are a board member, even though you're an alternate, on the public side of it, addressing the board on an issue that could inevitably be yours to decide.
Well, or
Or
let's say
you
one
could
of
be
us
up
all
here
of a sudden
later
got sick, and then you had to
Oh,
come
that's
to
true
the
too.
seat.
That's true too. That is
You
why
had-
we're
you-
here
You had
tonight,
made
correct?
you know, you had made a public you had made someone makes a comment sitting as an alternate, and then one of us all of a sudden is like, I have to leave, and we have to pull you, then we've then tainted, I think, that process of public comment versus board decision.
It may raise the question.
Yes, yes, I think we put ourselves in a precarious position, and I don't think we want to do that, considering the ramifications of when people come here and what their next course of action is. And I think we want to be very clear and transparent.
Any further comments from any of the board members?
Just, I guess, a question. When the alternates are here, but not active board members, are they permitted to take part in the discussion that the board is having?
Well, that's what we're discussing now. They're
Not
not
part of the
here
public
deliberating.
comment, right.
They can comment, they can provide public comment, but they can't deliberate, they don't have a vote.
Right.
So the answer is no, not any more than anyone else out in the public.
But I guess the situation becomes, if they don't have a say here and they make a comment in the public arena and then have to come sit over here,
Right.
then we've kind of cross-contaminated.
So I think what I'm hearing is that we're saying we shouldn't do that. It shouldn't be
Yeah.
public
Trying to avoid
comment.
it.
But to me, it would make sense if especially if you know, these cases are split between meetings, that the alternates are allowed to at least ask questions and get clarifications on the case. So if they do have to render a judgment at the next meeting, that they have their questions answered in the same form that everyone else is hearing questions.
questions.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, I think that was a difference. I don't think it was necessarily a question as it was a comment during the public portion. And maybe it's when that comment occurred. I guess what we need to decide is, if they are sitting as an alternate and they have a question that needs to come during our portion of the discussion and not the public portion of the discussion. I think that's more clear then, as to when they are speaking and whose side they are speaking on, not that we're taking sides, but it comes part of our discussion versus when we're opening up public comment and they're making a comment. It's perceived as a public comment, not a question that we have as a board. I think that's how I would, it's a good point. I think that's how I would differentiate it.
Just a comment on that. Thinking back to Mr. Allen, what I heard was questions. They came out kind of sounding like a statement, but it was actually a question. So one of the things I would recommend, one, as an alternate, you guys have every responsibility to make sure that you know exactly what we're talking about. And if anything is confusing, to raise it and ask the question. Perhaps preface by saying, hey, I have a question on this.
Well, that's the question, if I can talk, I don't.
What you don't want to
I would prefer
do
to be
is,
able, like, I've wondered several times, can I participate and ask questions or comments during the, if it's clear that I'm as a board member saying it, I think that would be fine.
yeah, and I think it's questions, perhaps not comments.
Okay, well, I mean, Scott brought that up as well, so when you guys are discussing a case, if I had an opinion, you wouldn't want it.
We might
Or-
want it, but we probably shouldn't hear it.
Okay, I mean,
What if it's during our session as opposed to the public
Oh,
session?
well,
That's
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yes. Their question should
I would
come out
prefer that,
when
obviously. I don't know if you guys would.
when
but-
it is open to us for the discussion versus,
Correct.
okay, I'm gonna close that portion and open it to the public for comment. At that point, an alternate should not be speaking.
Dean is
We should-
absolutely right. I mean, we're here as alternates and maybe not actively taking part in the case, but we should be asking questions and ask for clarification because it may trigger something on one of you. Like, oh yeah, and what about this? You know, and if that's done in the business session, I got no problem with that. I think it's great. I'd rather not speak during the public
Yeah.
portion.
Well,
What
are we,
about?
I guess, are we allowed to do that? Is-
I'm gonna check with the
That's-
city attorney.
Because I feel like now we're
My concern
starting to
is
cross
that
the
we
line.
have- we have seven
And here's where I'm,
members rather
yeah,
than
we're a
nine.
7-member board.
Now we're making it 9.
Well, and we've had, we're members of the public, we have had quite a large turnout. And in theory, I mean, how many members of the board? Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's our job.
I'd hate for it to
Seven,
be,
yeah.
now there's 9 of us, okay, so we like what someone else is saying, and then one person leave. Like, I guess it could be a lot of sketchy things that maybe could happen when you start having more people than the 7 sitting up here.
The other thing you need to take into consideration too is the fact that nobody that sits on any of these boards gets any more privileges than anybody else. They shouldn't get any less either.
That's a good question for the
I'll
attorney.
check with the city attorney.
Yeah, I think we just need clarification. If they're sitting as alternates and they have questions, at what
When are they
point?
presented?
Yes.
Well,
And
Well, if
in
they
the-
sit, like, say a case is postponed, and they have to sit at the next,
the whole case is revisited then again, and so if they had a question,
they can ask them.
that wouldn't they ask then?
Mhm.
So my thought is that maybe they don't say, and I guess I would like clarification as to when they say something. Because if it's brought back up, as we did that one case when we carried over to a second meeting, then they do have an opportunity then, they should make notes, jot notes down in that and bring it back for the next time if they have to sit.
I mean, I haven't said anything ever, except when I'm up there, and I've wanted to sometimes, but I didn't think it was permitted. I don't see how it would, I mean, you can always ignore me, so, obviously I prefer to be able to talk, but, and the next time if I am sitting with you, you guys would have a better sense of where I'm coming from perhaps if I'm commenting on the,
But wouldn't that almost be considered, we had a backdoor conversation and now we know your opinion and it could influence in making our decision? I don't know, I guess my biggest, well,
yeah,
but I
it's
guess.
all public, so.
Well, I know, but I guess my biggest thing is, I mean, people who come here who do not like our decision, their recourse is court.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying, I wanna make sure that we are,
Well, if I was denied and I was looking for any reason to take this to circuit court to get the board to rehear my case, I would make the argument that the possibility exists that because the alternate spoke,
Yes,
they could have had an influence on the board.
yes.
They shouldn't have spoke, and therefore this should be remanded back to the board. Now, it's,
You'd say that about anybody in the public too.
well.
Well, then, I guess,
you're
I
right.
guess, I guess
Right.
I draw the line that they are an alternate of this board and not a public.
Right, so any comments we reserve during the comment session of the board.
I guess we just have to defer.
It's a tough call.
Yeah.
But it's up to the lawyer.
So, well, I'm a lawyer, so what I would say is it's like a jury. I mean, you know, you have alternate jurors and the two, they participate in every way and then they just don't vote.
Right.
I mean, they're there and they're equal in every fashion, but then, you know, if, so example, like if this vote got postponed and one of you weren't there, I would have been participating in it all along, so I could just step in and fully.
All right,
Like the other evening, in the first case, say, we would make a public comment out there, and in the very next case, if it was being reheard, then you would come up and sit on the board after just making a public comment on the last case. That's just where the public perception part comes in. You know, what is the public perceiving on that? On one case, he's out in the public making comments, in the other case, now he's sitting up on the board.
I'm sure there's
That's where the
something
public
in the rules
perception.
Yeah.
and
I
regulations.
agree, it makes
I-
sense that it.
I just wanna
shouldn't
make
be
sure
making
that we are
public comment
transparent and we are
then
operating
sitting, but if
properly.
it's clear you're part of the board.
It would seem like
Yeah,
it would
that's, I
happen
agree,
during
I
our,
agree completely.
like,
If it happens, then it's in our
Right,
discussion.
exactly.
I don't know, it's gotta be something.
Let us know next
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah.
Okay, all right, good discussion. All right, next item of business, liaison.
I'm sorry, just one,
Oh.
if I could.
Other business, Mr. Smith.
Other business, last month's ZBA meeting, I want to thank you. You helped crystallize a few things that have been bugging me. Mr. Kirby? No, all good. Because we do, we need to take things very seriously. And what I'm going to take back to the planning commission is a discussion that says we need to look at our rules and find out, and particularly the 15-foot building separation. You know, 10-foot is the fire code. So what exactly are we looking for? And how do we want to manage, you know, the process? What does Berkley look like in 50 years? So just the discussion that we had last month helped me crystallize the discussion I want to have with my fellow planning commissioners. And I want to thank you guys for your patience and the work that you put in.
Next item of business? Oh, okay. Liaison report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Happy New Year, everyone. Just a few reminders. Next Monday, no council meeting in City Hall. City offices are closed due to the Martin Luther King holiday. So the 23rd will be the next council meeting. Tonight, the Citizens Advisory Committee met across the street. They may still be meeting, I don't know. 15 people that are going to help us decide, you know, which direction we should go in with our buildings and our roads and everything. One of the things I was listening to or thinking about, Mr. Evans, I think you were the only one that was an alternate since I've been around as a liaison, and it's a good problem to have and a good discussion and a healthy discussion that we're having. It's nice to have to worry about 9 people rather than 6 or 7 people, and I really appreciate that. Your work, I say it every meeting and I will continue to say, including Amy, your work has been great. The discussions have been great. And proof of that is from a recent applicant where things didn't go his way, and I know you guys have the memo, but things did not go his way. Yet he took the time to thank you for considering his situation and to thank Amy for the work that she did on this and answering the questions. And that's what this is all about. And that's what this board is all about. And I thank all of you, the 2 alternates, the board. I thank you for all the work you do. And that's what makes our city great, volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kadeko. Public comments. Mrs. Piacentini. Thank you for waiting, and thank you for coming.
Shall I say my name again?
We know who you are, thank you.
So I just want to point out, and I realize you asked me to wait till public comments, but you guys do know in your rules of procedure, it's your rules of procedure that you guys have that citizens can speak under each agenda item. And so what I'm about to say, it's really in the wrong spot, because your discussion regarding Amy's packet of information was agenda item number 2.
I'll double check those, and my apologies in advance if I didn't follow those rules. Thank you.
So, okay, so I just want to say, this was a nice packet that Amy put together, so it was nice to look at. But I think that grievances, I work in the union. I think variances need to be the exception, not the norm. And I know you guys think that, hey, you're not giving away a whole bunch of variances, maybe not 100%, but are you really sure this isn't still pretty high? Have you checked with the other communities on what they do? I mean, you're comparing you to you, right? So maybe, I think, it would be a good thing for Berkley to reach out to some surrounding small communities and find out what's their variance approval rate and such, because otherwise you're just approving you with you.
But if each case is to be heard on its own specific merit, then we can't compare to other cities. We have to compare each case individually. So if Troy, for example, has a 100% denial rate, then each of those cases should have been unique, and the denial rate for each case should have been unique to that specific case. So I think I don't think you can mix apples and oranges in this case. I think that would be good to know. But if each case has to meet the 5 standards, and
Correct.
each case is different and unique, and that is how we are supposed to rule, then I don't think there's any benchmarking we need to do. I think we need to look at each case and determine that it makes sense versus measuring ourselves. I don't think this is a benchmarking exercise.
And I understand what you're saying, but you had actually said, well, this just proves that we're not approving every variance that comes in front of us. So you were also looking at the percentages,
Well,
as well
I
as
believe,
what's been approved, what's not been approved, just as a whole, right?
because
Looking at these as a
I
whole.
believe the perception has been from the public that everything that comes in front of us, we 100% approve. And unfortunately, when we look at a period in 12 months, it's hard for us to remember.
No, I understand, that makes sense.
So that's what I was looking at, was in total, how many of them are there? Because we don't approve every request that the department puts in front of us, and they may say to approve it and we've denied it, or they may say to deny it and we've approved it. So I think that's a testament to us, and that's what I was more looking at, is what is that, and to help me summarize, because I don't keep track of every single one of them.
Okay, fair enough. But I think the perception with the public was a little bit more along the lines of the builders are getting all the variances and the residents are being told no.
But
So that, to me, was the perception of the public. I'm the public, and I talked to a lot of people, and I know you guys all know there's a big Facebook forum, and we all chat, but that is the perception.
But once
is that the
again-
builders were getting everything the builders wanted, and the residents were being told no a good portion of the time.
But once again.
And I realize
yes.
it's all on each individual case, but when you see that all the builders are, it appears, that they're, and I can't see a breakdown necessarily with this, are being approved for their variances. You know, there's a house on a lot, the house is demolished, the builder gets a lot split, the builder wants to build 2 houses. There's no hardship in the public's eyes. The builder created his own hardship. He tore down the house. He chooses to build 2 houses when he could build one big nice house, right? So that, and we see a lot of lot splits in the community, so that's a perception.
And I'm a perfect example. I have a
Yeah.
house that very easily could have been 2 houses. I am listed in here in 2007, and we chose to build 1 house. And we had every other builder who wanted to buy that property, wanted to build 2 houses on there, and it very well could have been done.
And you built 1, awesome.
Mhm.
It's nice to hear. Did you say something, Mr. Smith?
I said 1 big house.
Oh, 1 big house. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Smith?
if I could make one quick comment. the whole purpose of the ZBA is that somebody can come before us and let us know that from their seat, strict application of our rules creates an unintended consequence. And our job is to look at these things. When we get a resident that comes before us, the difference between a resident and a builder, the builder comes in prepared. They do this stuff for a living. They know what to say, how to say it, and they know what the rules are. So they will come in and they ought to do better. It's what they do. When a resident comes in, quite often the resident is poorly prepared.
Except tonight.
Except, no, tonight.
Tonight is the
yeah,
exception.
They did a good job.
That wasn't a resident, though.
No, but it's a property owner. And that property owner came in well prepared. But typically, a property owner will come in poorly prepared. And I probably spend too much time trying to help them. I'll ask questions, I'll give them every possible consideration. Because what I don't like to do is I don't like to tell anybody no. I would rather have them get to no. So yes, typically, when somebody comes up, they are gonna hear no.
Well,
Because if they're poorly prepared, we can't help them.
Can I talk again? Can I
And
ask a question?
that's just all I wanted to
we-
say
This is just more discussion now.
was,
But he directed his, at me.
Well,
I just want to ask if you give the 5 standards to the residents who come in to fill out the
it's
application.
right on the application.
yes, we,
And I don't have the application,
No.
I'm asking.
but it's
in
on
your
the
packet. It's in your
application.
packet.
I know it's in the packet, but
it's part of
it's on
the
back?
application that they're
Okay.
supposed to
Yeah.
fill out.
Gotcha.
Some of them do a good job, some of them say it would be difficult.
No, understand, I just wanted to
Yeah,
clarify.
no, they're giving it, I think a perfect example is the case that came in front of us, and I think it was this summer, with the gentleman who had the garage, created the carport, and then went back to want to create the garage.
Oh, yeah.
That was a situation where, yes, we did deny a resident, but having a brother-in-law who's the builder, he should have known better long before they started all that. But that was an unfortunate case when we made him tear all that stuff down.
Yeah, I know I don't use the test as to whether it's resident or builder.
I don't either.
45 test.
I got one more comment about that, is that neighboring communities, I'm betting, do not have to go for variances like they do in Berkley. They just do it. They put up a fence where it shouldn't be. They pour too much concrete, and
Not money to me.
we're not gonna do it here, but.
No, and I also think, I wonder how many of them go through the 5 standards and have that as part of the packet to support.
True.
I mean, do you guys?
In Troy, yeah,
Okay.
we have listed at the beginning of each, it's in each agenda packet right at the beginning.
When Royal Oak,
And-
in Royal Oak and in Warren, when I've gone for a variance for my business, it's right there in the packet.
Okay, no, good, I just, good.
Well, this is good discussion based on some excellent public comments. Thank you. Anyone else want to speak? No? Okay, with that, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Amy, February, or we don't know yet?
I don't know yet, deadline is
Friday, okay.